from Washington, D.C. Negar, thank you very much indeed for your time and for coming on the News Hour. Just tell us a little bit more about the man who's been executed and indeed what he has been convicted of.
Well, we know Mohsen Shekari, as you said, a 23-year-old male, was from Tehran. It seems like he worked at a cafe. Not much is known about him, but he worked at a cafe. He was a young man in Tehran, and he went through what human rights organizations are calling a show trial, which was very speedy. In less than 2 months, was handed this death penalty, which he contested, but it was upheld, and essentially hanged or executed this morning. And this is one of over 20 cases. Amnesty International has reported over 21 cases at least of known death penalty that's being handed to protesters. We also know thousands have been arrested. Many of them are awaiting trial and charges, and we expect that they will be handed also harsh sentences, as we've seen in the past. It seems to be a message, the state trying to send a message, essentially making an example out of these people and send a message to instill more fear and crush the protesters, or essentially send them back home.
Has there been any reaction, perhaps on social media, from the demonstrators? We know that up to 20,000 protesters have been arrested so far. What's the reaction been from the demonstrators?
Well, there's a lot of anger, and it's ironically backfiring. Essentially, what the state is meant, this message they meant to send is to instill fear, but this seems to just generate more anger, at least what we're seeing on social media and among the community. And I think in the coming days, I expect to see more anger. As we've seen also on the street, let's note that over 400 protesters have been killed by security forces, and their funerals and their memorials have also turned into more protests. And essentially the mourners who come to their funerals, it's been generating more anger and more protests, not backing down in a way. So it's been 3 months of these protests against the government going strong, and the government also has not shown any flexibility, and they've just been meeting the protesters with brutal violence.
And of the 20,000 people arrested who may well face trial, just tell us more about what they will face if they are tried by this revolutionary court. Do defendants have a chance to defend themselves? And is there any due process?
There is a lack of due process, as many human rights organizations are pointing out. They're calling them show trials, very speedy, within 2 months being handed a death sentence. And as I said, over 20 have already been handed the death sentence. They're going to go through this court and these revolutionary courts, and likely also be handed other ones harsh sentences, as we also saw in 2019. This is sort of the playbook we've seen from the state: brutal violence on the street, disruption of internet and the free flow of information, arresting of journalists, targeting of activists, and then ultimately this iron fist that the state brought down against the protesters by meeting them with violence on the street and also handing very harsh sentences. But even in 2019, it seems like comparing back to 2019, they're trumping up the charges and essentially trying to hand more of these harsh sentences and death penalties to these young protesters to send a very clear message. And this is something that's also been echoing in the messages of officials and members of parliament as well.
OK, well, we thank you very much indeed for giving us your analysis on this story. Thank you very much, Negar Mortazavi, there live from Iran. Thank you.